Greetings, GameCola faithful, and welcome to the GameCola Podcast. This is podcast number 192, two of we for all of you. I am your host and podcast commander, Joseph Martin, joined by...
I'm Blu Ryder. I'm part of the us that is here for you. Blue.
I didn't say us, I very specifically said we.
Yeah, well, I changed it. I
added
dynamicism to our intro. You're welcome.
On what authority do you do this?
I mean, whatever the same one is that John and James and all are allowed to do it.
Yes, you have to fight twice as hard, for it is just us, and you're not outnumbered. But the power with which I wield on the GameCola Podcast amplifies my baseline strength, and so you got an uphill battle to go, Blue.
Yeah,
I think
it's just us, and you're wielding injustice. And that was almost a joke.
It was almost a joke. If there had been something about like cold or ice or frozen, you could have been like just ice, which is my least favorite kind of beverage.
Something diamonds referred to as ice when being stolen by Mr. Freeze.
So,
I think that's a callback, isn't it?
It might be. Statistically, with 192 episodes, statistically it's a callback.
I think it was the... what was it called? The Tag. That's what it was.
Oh, yes. I was saying, speaking of Marvel video games and also video games that Blue is particularly familiar with, feels like there's a lot of stuff going on in the Blu Ryder-centric space of video games. The first thing, you've dealt not a defeating blow, but surely this is like a sign of progress in the war that you're waging against Warner Brothers Discovery. Because they've been cleft in twain. You've done this to them, Blue.
That just means that they can, like, hide the official... They can unofficially be dividing and conquering, and the government won't go after them as hard.
But, so, okay. How does Warner Brothers Discovery splitting into Warner Brothers and Discovery affect video games that Blu Ryder cares about?
I have no idea, honestly. Probably poorly. It probably...
Statistically? Based on previous evidence? Anything that happens?
Yeah, because they had to, like, destroy themselves to join together, and then they were settling in, and that involved more destruction. And now they have to, like, break up, which means they probably have to blow up whatever they were working on mostly. So, like, probably bad for at least the next couple or few years. It might get better after that, but I'm not gonna hold my breath. The likelihood that it is a good thing for any time soon is low. Zaslav is still in charge at Warner Bros. And
right, which that's the one that you care about.
He's my arch nemesis.
Would you feel different if he had been in charge of the other one?
Yeah, because then he would not be overseeing all of Warner Brothers, and we might get a good DC game.
But think about all of those Discovery video games that you care about so much.
I don't know if I do on it. I don't even know what Discovery is still. It just... it wasn't Discovery part of anything, and then when it was, nothing changed except it was bad, but not in a way that was unique. It was just more Zaslavness, so I'm very... I don't know. Nothing changes except that it gets worse.
Okay, but there are other comics-related things that are looking better for Blu Ryder.
Oh yeah,
right?
like what?
Well, apparently the Marvel fighting game is shaping up to be quite popular.
Yes,
According to
the Marvel Tokon fighting spirits, fighting souls.
Mm-hmm.
People
One of
keep
those two.
calling it Tokon, but I'm pretty sure it's Tokon because it is Japanese and it has the thingy over the second O that extends it. I think.
Yes.
I could be wrong about the grammar of the language, I barely know. But no more than the average Canadian, I think.
You think
That sounds
you're right
correct.
about on par?
Well, I'm actively trying to learn it, so above average.
Okay. But how do you feel about this Marvel fighting game, personally?
I'm really excited because, it is killing Marvel vs. Capcom, which a lot of people will be sad about, but I was never the biggest fan of Marvel vs. Capcom because it had half a roster of characters that I didn't really care about as much.
Can't believe you'd say this about Mega Man.
Mega Man was only in like one game, and then
I can't believe you'd say this about Mega Man.
That game was fine. It was like before I was born though, so when a new game comes out and it wasn't gonna have Mega Man in it either way, I'm fine.
Yeah, no, I mean, which was the one that had bad box art Mega Man, and like, didn't it have no other Mega Man characters?
I think that's just like one of the Capcom fighting games. I think it was just I think it was just a guest character in a Street Fighter game, or maybe Street Fighter versus Tekken or something. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't. I'm pretty sure it wasn't Marvel versus Capcom though.
I think this is why I don't play any fighting games, except if they have Mega Man in them. That's why I only play Smash Brothers. It's the only style of fighting game that hasn't made fun of Mega Man.
Well, there's the Marvel vs. Capcom collection, and I'm pretty sure there is a game in it that does have Mega Man. So...
Right, but the Capcom made a fighting game of the 2D style that's not 2D, but like the Street Fighter style, right? As opposed to Smash Brothers, which is, according to people who really care about fighting games, a completely different type of fighting game.
A platform fighter, yeah.
Yes, to use the technical term. I try to speak in the language of the masses, Blue. You don't need to be so academic and erudite about the whole thing. Platform fighter. It's just it's the game like Smash Brothers.
It's a Nintendo.
Smash Brothers, like. You know, Metroidvania, these are the terms of the people, Blue. They don't have to make sense. They don't have to...
I still think we...
clearly denote things.
Should stop
they
using that. Although, lately
For the sake
there
of
is...
this bit, I have to disagree with you, but off the record...
There is actually recent... Well, I don't know how recent, but... Since Metroidvania has happened, it has spawned the spin-off genre... it has now associated with a spin-off genre that is the Metroidvania, and I do like that, and so if we give up Metroidvania, we do have to give up that one, and it might be that we do have to keep Metroidvania now, and that is...
I think the fun one that exists on the other side of the scope of this discussion is all the different terms people use to avoid saying game that's trying to be like Pokemon.
Monster Collector.
There's Monster Collector, what was the other? The Creature Collector? Sometimes it's Creature.
Team-based
Monster
RPG.
Taming. Monster Taming I also hear as one of the terms. And I'm not saying that there's no way to divorce from Pokemon, but like the way people talk about it, they only ever use terms like that to describe games that they are thinking about Pokemon when they say it, but they don't want to say Pokemon like Pal World would be called like a monster taming game or a creature collecting game. And it's just because the little guys remind people of Pokemon. There's very little crossover mechanic wise. Not zero, but like
Well,
compared
enough
to like
that
any
they're
other
getting
RPG.
sued over it. So like, but
There's
sure,
one
not at all.
specific mechanic. Well, hey, so Blue, are you siding on the side of lawyers, Blue?
There's lawyers on both sides. There are good lawyers on both sides, Joe.
But you're siding specifically with the Pokemon lawyers to suggest that the mechanics are similar enough that it's worthy of suit.
That it is a fact that they are being sued for being too similar in some way. I did not decide that they should be sued for that. I didn't say that.
To suggest that it's relevant is to suggest that there's an element of truth to it. Otherwise, it would be a complete non sequitur.
No, I'm simply saying it's happening whether I like it or not.
Look, I don't care about that. I care about being right, Blue. You need to understand
this. Well, maybe you should make better points.
In any case, I think it's interesting. People are trying to like create a genre, and I'm not saying that they're unsuccessful. I think they are making progress in this, but it is very much we are trying to create something that could exist without Pokemon as a reference point, which has been a struggle, it feels like. Even if the games are good, right? Like just creating something that feels as definitive and not just splitting off from Pokemon as Pokemon continues to exist the way that it does.
Yeah, it is. It is very hard to do something like that because, like, Pokemon has existed since before I did. So, like, it's hard to imagine a world without it or that has moved on from it because it is so not institutional. What am I? Foundational? I don't know. Mm-hmm. It's there, it's been there, it's still there. It'll be there for at least a little while.
Still a very relevant touchstone.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I mean, it must have felt like Dragon Warrior, Dragon Quest, and Final Fantasy. I feel like, looking at some of the JRPGs at the time, it almost feels like it was the same. Like,
well, I mean,
so Pokemon much was spinning off from those specifically. And Pokemon did also spin off from that.
Yeah,
in a way.
But like Dragon Warrior, like they talked about in a playthrough on GCDotNet, it sort of invented a bunch of things for people to take off, and it's like the very most basic one, whereas Pokemon, it's got like, the foundations that they're trying to take from Pokemon are a lot less than from Dragon Warrior in a lot of the Pokemon, but with X gimmick or whatever, they feel the need to focus a lot more on the gimmick because Pokemon is so much bigger, I think, that it is hard to say Pokemon is this boring old default model and here's the new thing when Pokemon is still providing such a singular experience that I don't know.
Yeah, it's
although you could argue the opposite too, I suppose.
I think there's two ways. This is a fundamental philosophy of Joseph Martin. There's two ways to be successful. They're not independent. You can be parts of both at the same time. One is to think about what would be successful and then try to make that. And the other way is to do a thing that just do something. It's something just comes from you, the natural way you are, or the natural thing you want to make, and it just so happens to line up at that time with what people want.
Yeah.
And in either case, it will end up being successful, right? And you can imagine that there are a lot of things in Pokemon that come off as arbitrary, like why 6, right? Why do you carry 6 Pokemon with you at a time? Why is that the team size? Yeah. And I don't know. I don't know if they did some formula or if they were just like, this is what works best with the amount of memory we have at this time. But you can imagine that like one of the reasons Pokemon was successful is because they happened to pick 6 and that works really well for the balance. The balance of things. And if you try to mess with that, you'll actually find that it's not impossible, but there's so many other things baked into the balance. This is the other thing of like, you can't just change one thing, because if you change one thing, you're almost certainly going to break something else. And so you have to offset it some way. And in the process of doing that, you basically have to rearrange things. You can think about this in like, I mean, I was going to use Pokemon, competitive Pokemon as an example, but that feels a little too incestuous of an analogy. Perhaps a trading card deck. Let's use that, right? If you have a trading card deck, it's very rare that you can just replace one card of a good deck and that it will be better, right? Usually you have to say, okay, well, if I'm getting rid of this, then I have to change this to compensate for it and balance it out. Sometimes you're like one card away from like, oh, you had a bad idea, but you're one card away from a good idea. But if something is already clearly so successful, changing one thing by itself, in my experience with other analogies to things like this, is usually going to make it worse. And you got to like change a few things to find a new peak, right? So I'm thinking about this a lot while playing Koromon of like, an interesting they decided to do with the types was, okay, that there's 7 types that the Koromon can be, and you can have 6 Koromon, with the idea being that, okay, you can't have every type of Koromon. You got to have one gap in the type. But then also like not having double types in order to satisfy that, I feel like makes you lose something a little bit. I don't know. There's something very satisfying about a ×4 effective move. I think like even that is something that I think is really very effective, you might even say.
Whoa.
In Pokemon that you don't necessarily get in a lot of other games. Even just simple things like that can really change the vibe of things. I don't know. And like all of the pieces need to come together, and they don't need to be the same, but like you got to change a lot of pieces and you got to be really careful about how it all comes together. And I don't know why monster taming creature collector games seem to be so much harder to do this with than other games. I feel like other games, you still have to change a couple of things, but it's not as hard to see the trade-offs and the benefits.
I think
you know what I mean?
Yeah, I think part of the problem is that Pokemon is so massive, like the biggest grossing franchise ever, if I'm remembering correctly. And so any attempts at moving on from it feel cheap. Like you're just you're just cashing in on their success. And even if you're like actually giving it a genuine shot, a lot of people will just approach you as if you are being lazy. And that's unfair, but that seems to be the attitude towards it, and that makes me a little sad.
Which is interesting to me, and I don't mean to suggest that this group is worthy of derision, but it's like you think that I don't think either group is worthy of derision, but if one group is, if people who make original video games are, it seems like people who make like ROM hacks or Pokemon fan games. That is, again, I think there are lots of good ROM hacks and fan games, but I feel like if you're the effort involved in creating something completely original should be more immune to that type of criticism than a fan game, if that makes sense.
Yeah, actually, I think another aspect of it might be that Pokemon just simply, the world and the possibilities with it are so rich, and they still haven't explored so much of it that people are still mining that universe for more, so that it's hard to want things that are outside of that because there's such a demand and lack of supply of more mature and complex investigations of how that world works and what it's like to live in it.
Yeah, it's also interesting because, like, it's a world that, like, I would say that early on, the world of Pokemon is almost pitched as a near utopia. Like,
solar punk utopia is how I would describe it.
But I've also think that that's changed over time.
Yeah.
Not to get political on the podcast, Blue, But
As if
it's
I
really
haven't
hot.
done it 5
It's really
times.
hot all the time. And I think as that's not the only thing, but as weather patterns change and climate zones become different, I think Pokemon has been about in a lot of there's lots of like core ideas to Pokemon. And one of them is like the simple one is like, what if your pets were as smart as you wish they were? Right? Like if you could have like a more in-depth, intelligent relationship with your pets, right? Like your pets were just smart enough that it was more fun to hang out with them, but not so smart that it was weird that they're your pet.
Unless they were Alakazam. In
right,
which case, they
yeah,
were
and
people once, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
And others
but
too.
another aspect of it is like the relationship between nature and technology.
Yeah.
And I think one thing that's interesting about Pokemon that may even very specifically appeal to people who are into video games is that Pokemon is doing its best most of the time to depict a harmonious relationship between the two instead of an adversarial one, right? Like in a lot of environmentally friendly video games, technology is placed in pure opposition to like the natural world.
Yeah.
I don't know why I think of Sonic the Hedgehog cartoon as the example of this.
I mean, it's a good example.
It's a good example, right? Where the hedgehog and the animal guys all live in like a forest, and then there's the robot guy who's taking over the world, and he's made all the ground like metal because that's what technology does. It makes the floor metal.
Yep.
And you don't need to have that. And it's also interesting, like as the games have progressed, like how do they address this? Right? We talk about a solar punk utopia, but then like how do you address the reality of the world, especially as they try to more concretely tie it to allegories of the real world by like really leaning into these like, oh, this is the Pokemon version of France. This is the Pokemon version of the United Kingdom. This is the Pokemon version of this part of Japan. We always named it after this part of Japan, but now we're like really hammering in on the references in our historical allegory video game.
Yeah, well, what they've done is they've made it less and less like our world as they go on, if you pay attention. Like, there used to be just, like, cars and stuff, and now rarely do you see a car in a Pokemon game. It's bikes, it's flying Pokemon taxis, it's whatever. And then they used to have phones and radios, and now you have Rotom phones. It's the Pokemon are powering the technology. It's becoming less and less something that we see and know is hurting us and turning it into something more fantastical. And that seems to be how they're approaching that.
Right. And so, like, I think people don't always realize that there is this much going on under the hood in Pokemon games. And especially because the stuff that is on the hood does not do a great job of convincing you that people have spent a lot of time on this thing.
Yeah.
Which is the part of the problem with Pokemon. I've said this in many ways, different times, but Pokemon feels like a video game where people really like working on certain parts of it and do not care about working on other parts of it. Yeah. Right? No one, like no one gets hired by the Pokemon company to make a tree look good. That's not their dream. Their dream is not to make the trees look cool. Their dream is to make cool Pokemon or to come up with cool lore. And they don't, I mean, maybe now you might get in a few years as the cycle goes through, you might get people who played Pokemon who are like, I hate that the Pokemon games are so poorly optimized. My life's mission now is to get hired by the Pokemon company so I can make Pokemon games that run good.
Yeah. Hopefully.
Right? Maybe that's the plan all along. It's like you just have to be bad enough that you make it someone's dream to fix this for Pokemon. Or you just wait until technology gets good enough that you don't have to make the video game well for it to run well.
Yeah.
And I also don't want to necessarily suggest that people don't realize this, right? Like some of it too is just like if you're working at an indie budget, if you're starting from the beginning, you kind of have to pick and choose what you try to bring through all the way, right? You're not going to be able to do everything that Pokemon does, so you have to try to decide what you want to do. At the same time, I feel like I still haven't seen, in both the games that I've played and the games that I've seen, I haven't felt like I've seen one that has a super... Probably Cassette Beast would probably get the closest if I watched it. I'm just not super into the body horror angle that it seems to be around. But it does seem like that's at least a setting with interesting things to say. But I don't know. The thing with Koromon is this is interesting, but it doesn't necessarily feel intentionally interesting. Is that like there's like this scientific organization that permeates the whole, like every recurring NPC that you talk to, it feels like, is like a scientist as part of this organization. And it's strange. It doesn't make the world feel like a place. It feels like various like offshoots of this big company in a way that, as of yet at least, does not seem to like acknowledge that feels kind of weird. I don't know. I mean, I don't know. How do you feel about Cassette Beasts in this angle?
I mean, Cassette Beast is very interesting because it's sort of the people are in the world by accident, and it's not the one that they're used to, and they're sort of just like surviving it, and so it doesn't have the same like, this is our world and here's how it works, and like we plan on being here forever sort of deal.
Right.
We're stuck on desert island, but I mean, it's not a desert island, but like the feeling is sort of the same. We're trapped on this desert island and we have to get home. And that's... And we have, like, our community, and this is how we're, like, functioning in the day-to-day. And that's sort of more the focus than anything like Pokemon.
I feel like it still serves a similar purpose in, like, the idea of how you're gauging with the story beyond just like the literal events that are happening, right? You are thinking about like this kind of situation, how do people react to this kind of situation, and what are the implications that the setting has on how people interact and how the story unfolds, aside from just interpersonal dynamics.
Yeah, I suppose so. I don't know, it seems different, although I haven't finished it. I'll have to go back to it, because... Yeah.
I mean, are there other game series that you feel like are easier or harder to make this kind of... I mean, like, I guess World of Warcraft is kind of a tentpole for MMORPGs, where a lot of people tried to do... It does, in fact, actually, now that I'm thinking about it more, it does kind of feel... I think there have been some other MMORPG games or series that have kind of carved out a niche in a way that like no one really has been able to yet for Pokemon. Yeah. But there are a lot of people who's like, I'm going to make my own World of Warcraft, and it did not work. And that happened a lot for a long time. And World of Warcraft kept being World of Warcraft.
I mean, now the World of Warcraft players are going to RuneScape.
Yeah, that was the one I was thinking of. But I haven't played enough of those games to really speak on it more.
No.
Trying to think of like what are some other genres that have these like big tentpole or have had these big tentpole. I mean, I guess
Overwatch for a while.
Yeah, okay, that was what I was going to say too. Overwatch could have been this, I feel like.
Yeah.
And it was for like the run of the first game. There was a really strong period of, hey, we're all trying to make the next Overwatch, and none of us are figuring out. And then Overwatch tried to make the next Overwatch, and
when
also
they should not have. They should have been the
and
one.
And then they also got
one group
rid of
that
the
did
old
not
Overwatch.
need to do that.
Right. And now it does. I mean, like, I don't know how much I don't think I'm skewed by talking to you, Blu Ryder, known comics and also as a subset Marvel fan. I do wonder if I have an outsized opinion on how successful this game is based off of our interactions. But I know other people who otherwise do not have, I would say, like movie Marvel fans, right? Like
Yeah.
that level, it also seems to have worked well for them.
Yeah, well, like in like the first 2 months, it reached 20 million players, which is
Right.
a lot.
It seems like a lot. But so I think the thing to look out for, and I bet it's already happening in some cases, but to see a big explosion of it is people trying to make the next Overwatch to Marvel rivals to we're our own company. This is what Discovery's going to do, Blue. We're going to circle back around. They'll use all of their famous Discovery property characters and make a character. Is that what we call them? Character shooters?
Hero shooters is the
Hero
term I'm
shooters, that's
familiar
what
with.
they use. Yeah, they're going to do that. I think the next stage of this is going to be a lot of people, sort of like what they tried to do with multiverses. Just like, hey, we have a bunch of properties. The thing that... It's hard to see how Overwatch managed this in the first place, right? Like, so many... I've seen this. This is not an original criticism. I've seen this point brought up multiple times in talking about Overwatch and like its failed imitators of like trying to pitch the game by showing off the characters that we don't care about and that we're not going to be able to care about in like 90 seconds of a trailer, and instead you need to pitch like what's unique about your video game.
But the reverse is what actually happened to it, which is very interesting. Overwatch got big because of its characters.
Right. Yeah. And I don't know how they pulled that off.
They had Blizzard resources and were better regarded at the time and put a lot of quality work into it, it seems. And it felt like they had a story to tell. They didn't. I wish I really wanted them to.
Yeah. That was such a strange vibe. And I think later they did kind of like start putting stuff together, but only after everyone who cared about that had given up caring about it.
Yeah, I wanted to get into Overwatch so bad, but I was just waiting for them to do like anything with the story, and they just never did. And I was like, okay, well, I guess it feels too late now.
Mm-hmm. And so, like, one of the solutions, and I guess you can see how this sort of lines up, right? Like, the characters in Overwatch were original, but when Blizzard at the time said, here is our character, we've got talented character designers, so you're going to feel like this is a good design. And when we say that here are these interesting things about this character, you feel like that on some level there's going to be follow through. And like there was not a big cohesive follow through, but there was follow through on like the full characterization.
Yeah, it felt like they were going to give us a world and like make it matter, which is not something that most of the other Overwatch style games have done. They weren't
right.
Oh, any day now they'll announce this Concord animated Pixar style TV show or whatever. There wasn't that feeling.
This is the other thing. This also, we've really intertwined the topics on this podcast, but this is another thing that I don't feel like anyone trying to do monster taming has really nailed. I think the closest is probably Yokai Watch.
Yeah.
However, to whatever extent this
game. It was pretty successful for several years.
It worked relatively. I think the probably really the problem, quote unquote, with Yokai Watch was just that it was so, its premise just seemed, as far as I could tell, like very culturally Japanese specific.
Yeah, I mean, that's not even necessarily the biggest problem. It was also that it just like got way too oversaturated way too quickly.
Okay, I was not familiar as much with that part. And also like the gameplay was really different. It was more of a game where like you like set your party and then they automatically do stuff. And I don't know. I've never really enjoyed that model. To me has been hard to pull off. I feel like the only time I've ever seen it kind of work is what is it? What was the spin-off? Like there was Find Me on the 3DS, and then they made like a full video game that was kind of in that style. and I forget what it was called. Metopia? That's what I think it was Metopia.
Utopia.
Metopia.
Oh,
MII.
Metopia. Okay, I don't know anything about that.
But like it's so like I mean, do you remember Tamagotchi Life?
I also know like nothing about that.
But like you know the premise of Tamagotchi Life?
You make your friends and they live near each other.
Right. Metopia is like that, except you're making them like your RPG cast.
Right.
And so when your friends do weird things outside of your control, it makes them feel like, oh, this is like a characterization, right? Oh, this is because I put this character trait in for them, or because of this thing that happened, right? The interactions between things. And so it kind of gives you the space to create a story out of why that's happening.
Yeah.
Whereas if there's no like interpersonal connection like that, then it's just like, oh, this thing randomly doesn't do the thing that I want it to do. Sad. I'm sad now. But I do think like I think having the TV show offset that a lot, to be honest. And I do wonder why more people trying to do this. Obviously a TV show is hard.
Yeah.
But having some kind of visual media as part of even like before or in the lead up to, right? I think another thing that I feel like this is also the case for games in general, but games trying to be like Pokemon especially, is that the characters, like a lot of people just focus on the little guys, and the little guys are of course important, and having cute little guys will really get you a lot, but there's still foundation of like the Pokemon characters are also very popular. Even just the designs are evocative and meaningful for people, along with the setting that we've already talked about. And I don't feel like that is always given the same kind of attention in games.
Yeah.
In general, like it's definitely not as a rule, but like if someone is going to forget to put in a good part of their video game, I feel like strong characters is one of them. Because there's just too much of a focus on the raw mechanics, which can be good, right? Like there are plenty of games where, like Tetris, I don't care that Tetris doesn't have engaging characters. Where is my love interest in Tetris, Blue?
Well, there's fan fiction about that, actually.
There is fan fiction about that, episode 14 of Hacks and Slash. But especially in like RPGs or any game that has like people that dialogue, like good characters are important. Good character designs are important, like evocative, memorable, but also like, I think this is also potentially, I don't know, maybe it's something that's kind of hard in the indie space, because I think there are a lot more, when you want to make a video game, usually the people who are good at getting that started. Here, I'm gonna walk back my idea here. Imagine you're a programmer.
Mm-hmm.
You want to make a video game. Okay, we'll need to get someone with good art skills. If I want my video game to exist and it's a type of video game that would have characters in it, I need to get someone with good character design and art skills to help me out with that. Or I need to do something really minimal that just sort of puts in the bare minimum for that, because that's all that I can put together. Because I've spec'd into programming ability. If you're a artist who does like character designs, like you may want in some aspect to make character art designs for video games in general, but like you don't need a video game to post your art online.
Yeah.
And I wonder if there is a systemic disparity involved there. Not in like an ethical way that people are usually talking about when they say systemic disparity.
Yeah.
But just like in a way that things end up working out, where it's like a game designer probably needs artists more than artists need, like, and by artists I mean like visual, like drawing artists, that there's not really a good term for, so I'm just going to use artist as a shorthand. But video game makers are also artists. The terminology is not caught up for this kind of discussion, or I don't know it. It's not caught up in my brain, I should say. There's probably smart people who've already figured this out. Video game designers need visual artists, probably more than visual artists need video game designers when it comes to realizing their craft. And I think that's a hard thing about video games, is that you either have to be good at a lot of things, or you got to have a lot of friends who are willing to help you, or you have a lot of money to pay for that, or you just got to take the hit and focus on what you do have. I know, it's interesting. Blue doesn't think it's interesting.
It's interesting. It's just, you put it very well, and I don't have much more to say about that.
Well, I do know something that you would have a lot to say about Blu Ryder.
It's the fact that we did our Christmas in July, and so now, by next year, I have to convince everyone at GameCola to experience Blueprints so that it doesn't get left out.
Your goal is to get Blueprints on the awards for the 2025 awards in 2026.
Yep.
I see. We do need to play more 2025 video games. I feel like we did play a decent amount of video games in 2025 and early 2025 and over 2024, but not a lot of the ones that came out in that year, in my impression. So I think we need to do better on that. But speaking of video games and playing them, Blue,
What?
Are there any video games in recent times that you have been playing?
I've been playing Monster Train. It's pretty similar to Slay the Spire, which I was talking about last time, I think. It's sort of it's a roguelike card game, and except
very popular these days.
You'd summon monsters more than just like using attacks and defense cards. So that is the main difference, and it's been pretty good.
What do you like about it?
I like having units, because I like having more than one character. That's interesting. And you can actually, in Slay the Spire, you get like one character that has like a gimmick. In Monster Train, you have like whenever you start, you pick like a main faction and a secondary faction, and so you have like two separate gimmicks that you have to make work together.
I do like the sound of that. That I like obtuse gimmicks that you have to figure out if they have some kind of wonky interaction with them to make them work into a cool way.
Yeah.
That's a fun thing about video games.
Yes. Yes,
you can do with video games. Do you feel like, how many other like card game roguelike games have you played?
I mean, I think I started with Slay the Spire. Just because I like those genres so much, I'm sure there is something at some point that would technically fit into that retroactively, but I don't know if none of like the big ones until Slay the Spire like a month or two ago, I think.
It is interesting. Like Slay the Spire, I feel like invokes a kind of tentpole for card game roguelikes, but I don't feel like it's in the same way where every card game roguelike has this aspect of feeling like a derivative. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's absolutely a common touchstone for people who play these games, and I'm sure the people who make them too. But it doesn't seem like it has the same sort of reputation. It's just like the onboarding game for a lot of people.
I mean, it probably depends who you ask. Like, people who don't like that genre will probably lump them all in together. But I'm not one of them, so I'm like, yeah, I'm having a harder time of knowing what I've played would count as that after the fact. Yeah, I'm not sure. What have you been playing? Sorry?
I was just, if you had played any other video games in recent times, or if that was the main one.
I mean, Marvel Rivals still. The new season of that is about to start, so I'm excited. And how about you? What have you been playing?
You might be able to tell that I played a little more Koromon. And with what was on my mind on this episode of the video game podcast, the GameCola Podcast. I don't want to. I feel like I come down very hard, or maybe I come off as coming down very hard on Koromon. I like that Koromon exists. I think it is like a good video game that it has an inevitable, incredibly difficult comparison to live up to. And I don't want to suggest that the people making it are like, oh, they didn't realize this, or like, why didn't they do it like this, right? Like, clearly they made decisions on the scope of the game just because they needed, like, how you make an indie video game like this, right? So I find it very interesting seeing, like, okay, you cut this for the sake of actually making a video game. Where did it work and where didn't it work? And then also, where does that reveal where you place the priorities and how that worked out? I think a lot of games, creature collector, monster taming, have this, like, Pokemon appeals to so many different groups of people who care about different parts of the video game and can get those parts out of the game sometimes without even interacting with the other parts, right? Like, if you just care about it from, like, a mechanical perspective, a lot of the, like, oh, don't you care so much about these Pokemon? Don't you think they're cute and adorable and cool and want to be your friends? You can, like, leave most of that out most of the time, if you don't care about it. And you can also just, like, spend your whole game, like, trying to, like, look at all the cute animations of the creatures. You can get really invested in the story or just not care about it at all. So you can see where people bring in, like, what is the part that they found really interesting and try to nail down that demographic. To me, Koromon feels like it cares a lot about caring about the little creatures as a design perspective. And they were definitely thinking about competitive balance. And I think that is maybe a struggle with the game, is that a lot of the stuff that seems really only relevant for like the competitive aspect of the game is kind of not front and center, but not sidelined during the parts of the video game where they doesn't really seem like it matters. I think one aspect of this that I'm thinking about recently is, like, in Pokemon, there are abilities, which are like these one-off wacky things that this Pokemon can do specifically, versus the moves, where, like, most moves can be used by multiple Pokemon. So usually it's some balance of the ability is something that gives the Pokemon a lot of mechanical character on top of just, like, their regular design and what moves they can use. There are abilities in Koromon, and they're so often not relevant at all to me. And maybe they could be, and I look at them and I can see how they might be relevant in a competitive style battle. And I wonder about, like, are we over optimizing for this, right, at this point in the game? Like, I really shouldn't be thinking about that at this point. And I wonder if they started from a competitive format and a competitive balance and then worked backward from the video to create the video game that supports that. That's sort of how it feels to me right now. It may change as I play more of the game. I'm in the desert area for anyone who's played this game or is interested in following on. It's like probably the third main area in the game out of, I'm guessing, if I had to guess, 7, maybe 8, like 7. I'm going to guess that there's one for each type. That's sort of how it seems to be being handled. And there's 7 types, and so maybe like 8 or 9, depending on how you count it. Like the beginning area, but the beginning area might be like the standard normal type. And then I bet the final area, there'd be like one final area that doesn't have like a type affiliation necessarily, would be my guess. I don't know. It makes me, when you really have this thing to hold up and contrast against the full Pokemon games, it really makes you understand, like, the parts of the Pokemon games that do work. I really miss having characters that I care about a lot. I think it's like, even in the original Pokemon games, in the overworld, you had all these, like, really similar, like, you know, designs that fit in the little squares that they had for space for the character designs. But then in the battle, you would get this, like, larger portrait of the characters that gave a little bit more depth to the world and, like, gave you someone as a touch point to react to. And I just don't feel like that's really here, especially because so many of these characters work for the same scientific organization and are just different heads wearing lab coats. It feels like a lot of the time so far. Again, maybe this will change, But, and I've also interacted with the main antagonist of the game, and it does not give me, right now I'm not getting strong vibes that make me think that this is going to pay off in an interesting way. It feels very like, and it's not necessarily bad, but it's like, it's very straightforward, like, these are the bad guys, and they're doing the bad guy things, and we need to stop them from doing the bad guy things. Whereas, like, even when in Pokemon, even when the bad guys are like the mafia, or the, I should know this. What's the Japanese mafia called?
Yakuza?
The Yakuza. I have to turn in my video game card for not knowing that off the top of my head. Right, if the bad guys are the Yakuza. But even that is just, like, flavor-wise, it's interesting, right? Like, they do something interesting with it because they're, like, essentially normal guys interacting with the world in a normal way. Whereas, like, these villains are, like, purely separate from, like, it's even the point that they're separate from the world of the story. And so it just kind of feels like, as of right now, it doesn't feel super interesting. Again, maybe it'll get different. I still have a lot of the game to get through.
What does make it different from Pokemon?
In what?
Like, if you were to pitch Koromon to me, what is...
Oh, like, what are the positives that make it different?
Yeah.
I would certainly say that, like, compared to modern Pokemon, you're getting a much more streamlined presentation. It, like, looks nice. Like, the art, the visual art of the Koromon is very nice, and it's pleasant to look at and, like, interact with. And I think if you really care about that, like, you're going to really enjoy the designs in a way that you might not as much for Pokemon right now with the 3D art style. If you're missing some of the overworld flair of the old games, it sort of has a new take on that does sort of feel like an evolution of the original games. It can feel hit or miss at times, but I would say it's more often a hit on, like, doing something interesting on the overworld. This is something that I've talked about with RPGs a lot, of, like, how do you make the overworld, like, an interesting place to interact with? And so it's got some interesting stuff there. And it, like, and if you like the meat and potatoes of, like, Pokemon battling, it has that there for you. And I have a suspicion that the main, like, I bet that the balance of the game is pretty, it seems like it would be at least very well thought out. It also has a lot of quality of life features that if you care about, things like you can set a bunch of difficulty parameters. If you care, there's a lot of stuff that you don't have to worry about not being able to undo something. Basically everything in the game you can, like, undo and reset if you want to. So you don't have any of that. You don't have to deal with opportunity cost calculations on things you don't really know very much, right? Like, you're not presented with decisions that you can't undo if you don't like them very much. I think the only one that you get with that is the starter. And even then, like, if you find that out at the beginning that you don't really like it, you could restart pretty easily and quickly.
Yeah.
Music's good. A lot of the presentational aspects, and it's sort of like a not just a technical, but like a baseline, like, quality, I would say, are good. I think right now it's struggling to become more than the sum of its parts. It could come together for that. The way they handle boss battles is interesting. It's definitely at least a different challenge. I don't know if I like it more yet, but it's a variance. It's not like gym leaders or anything like that. That's all I can think of at the moment, but I might like more when I've played more of the video game.
Would you recommend it?
I think it is a good value for the price. I got it. I did not intentionally wait for a sale, but I ended up, when I decided to buy it, I got it at a sale for like $10. It's absolutely worth that. I would even say that it is worth the $20 price tag. I'm also probably a bad person to ask for recommendations for these sorts of things because I enjoy playing things, and this extends to other media. I will watch a bad movie if I think it'll give me an interesting insight into things. And so, all right, I'll play every Mega Man game, even if they're not necessarily good, because I'm interested in how all the Mega Man games influence each other, right? So, like, for me, I'm getting a lot of value out of Koromon of just seeing the intrigue of seeing something that really interacts with this genre in a more straightforward way that I've seen, but in also a way that seems like that at least appeared to me, not that the other games in this genre aren't, but like the pitch of baseline competency was clearer to me in this game than it was to others. Other games could also be good and competent, but I wasn't confident enough in that to spend money on it until I saw Koromon.
I see.
And Koromon felt more like what I wanted out of another game in this genre, as opposed to stuff like Pal World and Temtem, which are trying to kind of expand into different genres with similar trappings of the original genre that it's clearly referencing. Nexomon was another one that I'd heard about, where it seems like I may try it. This seems really stupid, but like the way that they do like the battle damage calculation, I don't like. They do like you subtract the attack from the defense or something like that. It's I don't know. I don't like that kind of style for this kind of game, I feel like, and maybe that's just a dumb thing that I need to get over. If it's balanced well, it's probably still fine. As opposed to like the damage calculation that you get in standard in a lot of other games like this. And then like Cassette Beast, which looked really cool, but also like not my vibe stylistically and narratively at all. Right? It's the opposite of Solar Punk Utopia Future, I almost feel like, in a way. It is dystopia at its premise. Maybe not dystopia, but like a bad place to be.
I mean,
at least.
Not really. I mean, it's
a place that everybody's trying to leave.
It's an isekai.
They're isekai where they get there and they're like, there's a range of isekai, right? Where it's like, I've been teleported to a new world and I've just accepted that this is my life now. Usually if you die in the original one, like you're just like, okay, this is just the next thing that I'm doing. And you don't even care about all the people in your past world and life. Down all the way to the other end of like, I need to get back. And that is the singular thing I am focused on all the time. And it sounds like Cassette Beast is more on that side than the first side. Do you specifically told me that they're on an allegorical desert island trying to get off the island and back home.
As the main character, yeah. I think they're, like, the towns, like, the main towns and stuff. I think there are people who have, like, just, like, been there for, like, 60 years, and they're just sort of living there. I don't know. It has been a while since I last played it, so I would not 100% confident in that, but like I think that is true.
Okay. And like some of these games may have this, but like I've seen a lot of people talk about the creatures in all of these creature collecting games. There's not yet been a game where I've seen someone say how much they love this human character in the creature collecting games. And once we get that...
Cassette Beast has that because you have, like, partners that you go on adventures with, and they each have their own storyline.
Okay. But it's scary, though.
The boss fights can be a little scary, if I assume. I don't know. I'm very deep in the horror sauce, so I don't... It's hard to say whether... I'm trying to do my best guess, but I don't.
I do not put. I want. When it comes to horror sauce, I want my plain rice, my plain white rice. No horror sauce, please. My life is stressful enough. I don't need to be stressed for fun.
The music is great, though.
No, I believe it. It seems like a really well put together game. I feel like it would hit really well for people who are into the things that it's trying to do. And I just happen to not be into the things that it's trying to do. But I don't think that's a fault of the game. I don't think that's a failure, necessarily. Not that to say that I believe it to be flawless in this imaginary image I have of it.
I can send you a picture of the bosses. It will be spoilers, but, like, you'll know whether
Well, let me finish the video game that I'm playing right now before try to suck me into a new one. Okay. And let me finish... the podcast that we're doing right now. Thank you for listening to this episode of the GameCola Podcast featuring Joseph Martin and Blu Ryder. If you liked what you heard, be sure to check us out on our actual internet website, GameCola.net, our YouTube channel, GCDotNet, the letter G, the letter C, the word dot, the word net, our Discord, which you can find linked on the website and in the description of the YouTube video. You can find us on podcatchers, just search for GameCola, and you'll find us in your various Spotifys and Apple Podcasts and those Google Podcast RSS feed catchers that somehow find us without us uploading ourselves to them. Leave a review on your platform of choice, whether that is a comment or one of those 5-star rating things on Apple Podcasts. Show people who find the podcast themselves. They're like, hey, there's a real human person listening to this and they liked the podcast. It's not just a little number on the view counter. And if it's Apple Podcasts, they don't even have the view counter. So that's my call to action to you today. Is there anything you would like to add, Blue?
Experience blueprints if you're a GameCola member. James, you're listening to this. Experience blueprints. Thank you. Goodbye.
I would like to clarify that I believe Blue is referring to a video game about a prince that is either allegorically or literally blue. And is not asking everyone to get involved in architecture.
It makes me wish recency bias wasn't real so that I could say that it's the coolest video game ever.
I wanted to clarify that you're talking about a blue prince and not blueprints for architecture and design. Is this landing?
You got the double meaning of the title of the video game.
Oh, it's an intentional one.
Yeah.
Oh, that's even more fascinating. And you specifically elected not to talk about this game when I asked you games you've been playing in recent times.
It is the only video game I've ever forbidden myself from buying because it is so me-coded. I would have been obsessed with it to the detriment of my life. But people who are less me might be able to be normal about it.
Might be able to withstand the power.
Yeah.
That sounds very interesting. We'll see if we can get someone else to play that and verify that. In the meantime, thank you again for listening to this episode of the GameCola Podcast. Have a wonderful time of day, wherever it is, whenever it is you are listening to this podcast, and we will see you next month.
Yay.
Goodbye.
Goodbye. Sync. Wow, that was perfect for me.
And not for me, but I believe that's how latency works.
Good.
This was 192, right?
If I Google it, it might be. I didn't do the Wordle. Gramophone.net. That one. It is 192.
Okay.
Counting is good and numbers.